Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty, and you probably can't help noticing that I am decidedly bereft of either Silk or Stretch right now. Michael Alajade has already said that he can't make tonight's show. Gary is supposed to be here right now. I'm confident that he will turn up in the next couple of minutes. And I didn't want to delay it any longer waiting for Gary to get in the studio and get set up because I figure we may lose some of you who might be looking to tune in right on the dot. So I don't want to, having said that, all of that, I don't want to talk too much until here he comes. Here he comes. And I have to talk too much till Gary Stretch gets here because he's coming here now. There we go.
I'm sorry I'm late.
What's up, Gary? 1 second. So I'm
It's
just trying to.
11:11. It's my lucky number, so maybe a good show.
You're very, very quiet, mate. Let me.
How's that, Ben? Is that better?
Maybe it's my volume. Let me check my volume. 1 second.
Is that better
Sorry,
now?
guys, while you're watching this. I've got a new device and it's. Sorry. My fault. Hello?
Hello?
Now you sound really agreeably loud. That's great. Let me
Good.
just change the layout here as well while we're on it because we do it like this usually. Do you know what? Everything's changed now. Just got an upgrade today, Gary. So
Oh, good.
okay, there we go. A little bit dark your setting, but I guess that works. Kind of some sort of mood lighting.
My
Bit of a
setup's
shadow.
lighter than yours.
Say again?
My setup's lighter than yours, I think. Is it?
Are you kidding me?
No.
Guys, help me out here. Early dispute on show. Gary reckons his setup is lighter. Please help me out. Mine is really lit up here. And his is quite shady. But either way, it's all right. We can see you. We can see you. So, unfortunately, the gay pirate can't be with us today, Gary. He hated that,
Why
you know.
already you're giving him abuse.
Well, to be honest, I'm not abusing him directly. That was a quote from we had a YouTube comment on the show, one of the shows, and somebody said, I can't remember what Michael was expanding upon, but someone said, what? We're taking notes from a gay pirate now. And he said, this guy only got platformed by white guilt. He thought that that's why we had Michael on the show, because of white guilt. He obviously, it's very disrespectful, and he obviously doesn't realise he's talking about a former two-time world title challenger and a fine fighter. But I thought it was funny. But Michael did not care for it at all, that comment. So
no, I'm sure he didn't. So
no, he didn't. But so anyway, Gary, any technical breakdowns and predictions of the Devin Haney Ryan Garcia fight tomorrow night now, they've been somewhat overshadowed today by the scandal of Garcia coming in 3.2 pounds overweight, forfeiting $1.5 million as per a prior agreement if he didn't make the weight. And, you know, that's pretty much taking the headlines today. What are your thoughts?
interesting thought. Was it planned? I don't
Maybe.
see. I mean, you and I know, Ben. You know when you're going to make the weight or you're not. You just know. Certainly 3
Yeah.
pounds, right?
Yeah.
So, is he playing the card? He'll forfeit $1.5 million, but win a fight, and in the long term get all that back because he'll be the biggest name in sport. And going into the fight extra strong and super hydrated, and you know Haney's going to make the weight, but Haney's shouldn't have a problem at the weight. But is it another Ryan Garcia game? Because he knows the only thing that, and the reason I think it's a game is this: he was the one who offered the bet.
Yeah.
Right. So he knew. And is this a ploy saying takes off some of the guilt, like, because everyone will say, my God, he's going to have to pay 1.5 million. That'll be the name. That'll be the story rather than the weight. But the weight may be the factor that wins the fight. And so is it a very clever ploy by Ryan to take the heat off him with poor Ryan's got to give 1.5 million of his purse because he couldn't make the weight? Or did he plan it? He planned giving the money up, but he planned on the super objective is to win the fight because at that weight, he's strong as a bull. He looks huge. Is that a game plan that he's set? We won't know. I mean, I did get a chance. That's why I was late, because I know we were going to talk about it. I saw the ceremonial weigh-in on YouTube, and
Yeah.
he went to the scale drinking a bottle of fluid before he got on the scale. So he obviously knew, and he was just acting like that was the reason he's overweight, and he doesn't care.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, the thing is, if when they have this ceremonial weigh and they've already weighed in, so they could all drink water if they wanted to. They probably don't do it because they're trying to keep up this promotional illusion.
right,
Whereas
but he made it
Garcia
very
already failed at
clear.
that point, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess so. He's
Well,
gone
of
on
course.
drinking water, so that the silly, well, not the silly, that's rude. The average spectator who doesn't understand the ceremonial weighing and that they've weighed in earlier thinks he's missed weight because he's drinking water. So he's doing many things to kind of evade the real issue. But my big question is, forgetting all the games, did he and the money, does he feel it would be more beneficial to come in at his absolute
Well,
best?
yeah, I take that point. I mean, yeah, I think it's
Because if he
definitely
beats
made.
Haney, he's still gonna he'll make a lot more than 1.5 million
Well,
on
yeah,
the on a sponsorship deal after. Anything will get his money back. So if he's a little bit weaker at making the weight and he says, fuck it, I'm gonna go in 100%. I'll give 1 million away because I'll be so strong, I'll definitely win the fight.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that,
Yeah. But listen, that point has been well made, and certainly what I was going to say was his tweets since failing the weight very much seemed to confirm that attitude and the idea that he knew he wasn't going to make it and didn't intend to, because he said, "Why would I risk? Why would I try and make weight and risk weakening myself?" He says, "Well, now I've got a 3 pound weight advantage and I'm still sharp. I feel great." He was that blatant about it. He said, winners do what they need to do. So he is very unapologetic, unrepentant, and
why
I
would he
mean,
offer the money and give it up? Well, let me say this, Ben. You know for a fact, if he wouldn't have made a deal before, he would have still had to make a deal after, because they would have said the fight can go on, you got to pay us, and
yeah,
we'll negotiate the deal. So he
yes.
negotiated the deal early,
Pre-fight. Well,
pre-fight,
pre-weigh-in. Yeah,
and
yeah, pre-weigh-in.
because maybe they could have had him by his balls at when it was already done and last minute, and they could have pushed for more money. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe he knew,
Interesting, yeah.
and he did a deal before, and he knew it. So again, it's all swings and roundabouts in games. We'll never know. But the end of the day, if you're a Ryan Garcia fan, I think you'll be happy that he's comfortable, he's strong, and he's not killed himself to make the weight.
I don't think I don't see that attitude at all. I think most boxing fans, unless they're completely cock a hoop with Garcia worship, are saying this is piss poor. I can't believe a professional athlete has made these statements he's made afterwards, and they'd be thinking, "Fuck him." I actually wanted him to beat Haney, but I hope he gets knocked the fuck out now. That's what I've seen.
But if you look at that, Ben, that's not his fans. His fans are little YouTube kids.
They are, and
And they
they
don't know
probably
all
don't.
this stuff, and they'll just let it go over their head. We all know it's a joke. It's embarrassing. Poor Haney killed himself, dieted, starved himself, and then he walks in, Ryan, like a happy-go-lucky 3 pounds over. For us, it's a great disrespect, but for Ryan Garcia fans, don't have a clue. They got 3 pounds. It's nothing, and they'll still be more, overjoyed with him. They'll all be laughing when he's drinking water on the scales, thinking he's funny. Is it his audience is playing to, and that's what pays his bread and butter, maybe. So again, it's like it's a mad show with it, it's becoming the Garcia show is becoming a
Well,
crazier and crazier show
Well,
as
sure. I mean, the foul mouth tirade at the press conference yesterday, and it just, you know what I mean. None of it speaks of a man who's completely well upstairs. He doesn't seem to be the smartest cookie in the jar either. He is acting every inch the epitome of the entitled Gen Z brat. And the guy that's. I see Jim Lampley made some interesting comments the other day when he said, would this fight be happening if it wasn't for social media? And he was talking about where we're at today in this generation when that's where Ryan in particular his leverage comes from. Not saying he's not a real fighter, because he is, and he has got talent, and he did have 200 amateur fights and all the rest of it. But he does seem to have lost the plot, Gary, for the most part. And the statements, not making weight, it's just another red flag, isn't it? The only thing, you know what? I've seen an interesting caveat about the weight. Someone says yes, it's bad. but I don't really mind these kind of tactics if that's what it is against Haney, because Haney works with Victor Conte and balls himself dry. Then he comes back in at about 165 on the night, which is nearly a super middleweight. So some people said it swings and roundabouts in terms of who will weigh heavier on the night. We don't even know, do we?
No. And the bottom line is this. And I know they can all have opinions. They can all pick sides. They can all say he's unreliable. He's irresponsible. At the end of the day, whoever wins the fight is the better fighter. For me, I can't give £3 is going to change because Haney's big at the weight. He'll come in 160, maybe heavier than Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
But
I think £3 could, and as you know, £3 obviously can have a
it can
dire
have a
effect on
boiling
the
point.
consequence. But I
Yeah,
don't think it will in this instance. I agree with you because
I think we'll whoever wins it will be the better fighter. There'll always be a little bit of controversy because of this weight, but I think truth be known, if either one does the job, it's job done. You know what I mean? End of that chapter.
Yeah. So that brings us to the essential question of who you fancy to win tomorrow night. I must admit, I've got Haney, and the reason I've got Haney, I don't think he's unbeatable, far from it, but I think he's the better seasoned, more experienced, more developed fighter of the two. I don't think he beat Lomachenko for what it's worth, Gary, but he did a
I
great job against. No, you don't. See, the Silk does, but the Silk didn't score it anyway. But it
I
doesn't matter.
pretty much scored it, and I had Lomachenko a couple of rounds ahead.
I'm with you, right with you on that, Gary. But okay, but he looked pretty good against Regis Prograis. That's he had the. If you want to go back to his last four fights, Devin Haney, he had the 2 wins, shutouts practically over George Kambosos. Then you had the Lomachenko situation, and then he had the pretty much a shutout again against Regis Prograis. Garcia, since getting knocked out by Gervonta Davis this time last year, I wasn't impressed with his comeback outing against Oscar Duarte. He got the job done in the end. I think it was like the 8th round, if memory serves. But he didn't look great that night. He didn't
No,
look like it. It was bizarre, Gary. He was running almost uncharacteristically, moving and running and not punching.
turning
Then he
his
was
back
doing
on him
this.
almost. Yeah.
The shoulder roll, yeah, he was doing what it's a bit like if you said to somebody who was like a complete novice, "Show me the shoulder roll. How'd you do it?" And they do you their kind of impression of it. It was turning his back right round, and then he found a few shots. I think it was a right hook and whatever, a couple of follow up punches, and he closed the show. But so I just think Devin. I don't know if Devin will stop him. He might grind him down. Garcia can punch, so there's always a danger there. But Devin is pretty defensively tight and savvy, pretty difficult to hit. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Floyd Mayweather light, like a diet version of the full Floyd Mayweather kind of drink, as it were. But so I fancy Devin Haney probably via the long route, but either way, I fancy Devin Haney. I mean, I don't know what your take might be.
I don't think he could lace Floyd Mayweather's shoes, to be honest, in any aspect of his game. I think Floyd is just another levels above him.
All right, Tesco's own label then, not even Floyd Mayweather light, just like Sainsbury, no, Asda
No,
own brand, cheap economy pack.
it's like it's like the cheapest supermarket in the world and going to Whole Foods. It's like another level.
Yeah,
But
but he tries to fight like that, right?
well, I tell you, he's a different fighter. He doesn't have he doesn't really have the gifts that Mayweather have. You've got to look at Mayweather. People remember him now, but if you look at him young, he was pretty amazing. In the early days, knocking everybody out, he was, and you've got to see he moved up weights and all of the above. But if you look at the fundamental Mayweather at his best, because you're looking at Haney's probably coming into his best right now. And his best right now is so much more limited than Mayweather's best. We again, people look at Mayweather in the last few years. He was really in his prime 10 years ago. But in regard to Haney and Garcia, all of my boxing brain would say Haney's more disciplined. He's a school. He's a
Well
great
schooled.
pupil. He's well schooled, well versed in the game. He's got a good IQ. He's very structural and fundamental. He's got a good jab. He's quite defensive. He's a very all round, got everything. And
Yeah,
you would
not a
say,
huge puncher, but
yeah, but you would say, hey, Garcia's a little all over the place. But my gut is going with Ryan Garcia is going to do the job.
see, I had a feeling you would do this stretch. I had a real premonition that you would go this way. And the thing is, I do think there is a touch of stardust about you in that you do luck out with these things sometimes. You'll go on a limb and get it right. And so I've started to be wary of whenever you make a pick, particularly if it's against the grain. But this was my feeling. I've got the Silks prediction because I think we had to have rules where nobody can phone it in. They've got to make the prediction on the show. Even if he can't be on the show, I got him to pre-record it and I will play it in a bit. But I thought, I
You
bet
said
me and Silk go one way and Gary goes the other.
no, yes, true. No, you know what? It's like, let's look at speed. I've got to shade with Garcia. Power,
Yeah,
I've got to shade with Garcia.
fair comment.
Um, Size, even. Slightly Garcia at the minute, maybe, but punching power, speed, I would edge with Garcia. When you talk about boxing IQ, I would still edge with Garcia.
What? Why? Why?
Well, no, hear me. Boxing
That's
I
like saying like
no,
black heritage inside with Garcia.
let me let me tell you. I think boxing IQ, Garcia. Boxing fundamentals, Haney. So the basics is Haney.
Where's the evidence? Hang on. Where's the
Let,
evidence of
let me
Garcia's
finish.
IQ ever? Ever?
IQ is when you can do things, when you can outthink, when you can set up, when you can make traps, when you can do something a little out the normal, which is a bit above the general, the generalmanship. Haney's a really good, solid pro, but Garcia has a little bit of magic, a little bit of brilliance here and there, and that's the difference. He's a little all over the place, but he's a bit like, look at Prince Nassim. He's not. I can't even put him into two same categories, but the
Unorthodoxy.
unorthodoxness about Nassim was his genius.
That wasn't IQ though. That was feel. That was just natural
Yeah, but
talent.
that's what Ryan has. But you have to have a certain kind of IQ to feel.
Bernard Hopkins has got boxing IQ. I don't get Ryan Garcia
I think
in that
Bernard Hopkins
context.
has got boxing fundamentals. I
Yeah,
think,
and IQ.
well, to a degree, but
To a huge degree. To a huge degree.
I use IQ as in a different
You
way.
seem to have a different interpretation of it. Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
I look at boxing IQ as doing things like IQ is what an intellect, right? So
Yeah,
when you
exactly. And I don't see it with Garcia.
no, but he pulls stuff out the bag,
Lomachenko, sure.
but he does it on a regular basis. In all of his
Well,
fights.
who's he fought? With all due respect, who's he? I'll tell you what. Then his IQ, he was completely failed the IQ test against Gervonta Davis. He was dwarfed by Gervonta Davis's boxing IQ. Never mind the other aspects.
Let's stop there a minute because and you have to let me finish, Ben. He wasn't, because whether you believe it or not, but I know a good source that he was days out of pulling out the fight because he had a split rib.
Right. But he was out of his depth regardless of
No,
the body shot finish.
we understand. We'll see, but he got hurt to a body shot, and he had a big problem in the gym. He has medical records. They didn't want him to fight. He pushed it. I don't know whether he wanted the money. He didn't want to pull out so late. He took the fight. He got really hurt, and that was it. And he knew. I wonder if it would have been different if he'd been fully fit. We'll never know. Up to that point, no one was doing anything too much. I don't think.
Garcia. Sorry, Davis was winning that fight, and
But
I don't want to
Burley,
quite want to use the word dominate, but Davis was in
oh,
charge.
look,
Davis was in charge. He couldn't do much with Tank.
right, and it looked like we both know that as the fight ticked on, Tank probably would have worked him out and got to him eventually. But let's say that's a bad night, and even on a good night, maybe you'd lose to Tank. But Tank's Tank. He's not. He's not.
Yeah, he's special.
I don't think that Devin Haney has much of a chance with Tank.
No, you know what? If they fought, I would fancy Tank to win the fight as well.
Yeah, I think he's too much for Haney. And it's not just, and that's an educated guess. The quality fighters Tank's fought, and he does the same to every one of them. He works it out. He's a Mayweather prospect, and he works it out. He's there with Floyd. They've been there for years. They know that they're getting with everybody. They work these guys out. It's a certain breed that Mayweather seems to turn out. He's got a young kid now. He's doing the same. It looks like a mini tank.
Carmel Morton.
There you go. And they'll keep producing them in this environment because, you know, you do this kind of work if you have a certain amount of ability, and then you do the work that they do, you're unbeatable because they know, you know, there's so much knowledge in that gym, and Floyd and all the boys, they're just a factory of brilliant fighters. So let's just forget. So Tank would have beat both, and I think he probably would have knocked Haney out. Haney's been decked before by much lesser punches. So they both have a loss to Tank, let's say, in my mind. Other than that, Garcia didn't look great in his last fight. I'm with you on that.
Well, you're saying they both would have had a loss to Tank, you mean, if he'd fought him?
Yes, they would have had. And in the Garcia's last fight wasn't a great performance, but he pulled a shot out the bag, which he seems to do all the time. On all of his victories, he finds these shots, 90% of them. And this is the thing that it's not one shot, it's most of the time. It's either the left hook, but he hits with both hands. And all he's got to do, and I think with this kind of fight, there's a lot of blood and a lot of hot heads. If they get into exchanges, I give him the bigger chance of scoring the knockout than Haney.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think Garcia's likelihood and chance of winning is by KO, and like you say, particularly if Haney is a little emotional because of what's going on in the build-up. Whereas I fancy Haney to win, but I think it will be on points. He could maybe stop him or grind him down or whatever. But I think certainly if there's going to be a KO, you would fancy Ryan to score it.
It could be the worst fight in history as well. It could be. Everyone could be all hyped up for this. It could be Haney sticks behind the jab, boxes, and doesn't, you know, and just It could be one of them jobs,
like the Norris.
It could be. If it's one of them explosive fights and it's a lot of fun, and you know, Hearns Hagler, they just go at it, the two of them. Haney's going to have to watch himself, but I don't know why. I've just got a funny feeling Garcia, he has a bit of the Midas touch himself. And I think if he's got his head right, and I think he's probably trained really hard. I think he loves the idea that everyone thinks he hasn't. I think he's a gamester. And if he's really got himself in a good shape and a good headspace, I'm going to just go with I know he's an underdog, but in many people's, I'm going to run with the craziness of him.
Do you want to see what the Silk said?
Yes.
Okay, let's get Michael Elijah Jr.'s prediction up now. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is okay. This is the Silk's take on it a little earlier today in New York City.
Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm sorry I can't join you today for the show. This is Michael Elijah at Sugar Silk and Stretch. I am the Silk portion, quite naturally. And tonight, the fight, Garcia, Haney, is going to be a good fight. It's going to be entertaining. And I like that. I mean, it's much easier when you could pick sides because you have a preference of a certain personality. But in this case, either way, I don't have a difference either way. I don't champion one or the other. I do believe it's going to be about the physical attributes. And on that level, I do believe Ryan Garcia is susceptible in the defensive market. I think offensively, he has a great offense. I think defensively, he's shown no defensive attributes that would give Haney any worries if he decides to kick it into offensive gear and really go at him. I think he'll get Ryan anywhere between 5 and 8. And he doesn't start very many people. I don't know if what Ryan's been doing mentally, psychologically, whatever he's saying, I don't know if that's having any weight on Haney at all. I don't believe it is. I do believe that it's going to be pretty much a beatdown after the first 3 rounds. What happens is once the fighter gets fatigued, then they start to realize reality sets in, and they say, oh, where am I, and why am I here, and why am I staying here? This is very uncomfortable. I don't believe, again, Garcia to have the defensive attributes to be able to make this a fight. If he had defensive attributes, if he slipped, if he blocked, if he, did like, Whitaker-esque type stuff, Ali type stuff, I would say yes, this is going to be a great fight. But I do expect it after the third round, especially once he gets the wind out, it's going to be a pretty consistent beatdown, and he's going to be in survival mode for the rest of it. So the call here, Haney in 8, and yeah, enjoy the fights.
Great.
That was really cool, the way he was right in the middle of us, like he is when he's on the show.
It was great, yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
You should have kept him there, abused him, and the audience would think he's like a mouse who's not fighting back.
Well, the thing is, because anyone who just tuned in then would have thought it was a regular episode and he was in the studio. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. You could have given all your negative comments to him. He doesn't respond, and people would have thought he's either super evolved,
Yeah,
or he doesn't want to get into an argument with you. But that's interesting. He has a very good take on the fight. That is the take I have. Common sense.
yeah.
The X factor that my brain is saying exactly what Silk says, what you say, but my heart, and not because I want Garcia, I really don't care too much, really.
Yeah,
I think I prefer Garcia to win it. I know he's a bit of a crazy kid, but I think he's a genuinely nice kid underneath it all. Haney is what he is, but I think I prefer Garcia as a guy, and I think he has something a little bit special, and I think it might come into play. And I'm hoping he can do some magical, and he just might be doing it in super fashion.
yeah. Well, do you know what? If he hadn't have fought Tank, suppose he'd have been out of the ring for ages with personal problems, then he'd have come back. Let's remove the Tank fight and just say he came back and fought Duarte last time out. I might be feeling your prediction more, because I think he does have X factor. There's just something there. I thought that after he beat Luke Campbell years ago, that he has weapons and he has attributes, and there's just something greater than the sum of the parts about him. I did feel that way. But when I looked at the Gervonta Davis fight, I remember thinking, well, unless he can take those lessons on board and rise to another level, which he still has time to do. Obviously, I know he's only fought once since. Then I don't necessarily feel he's going to cut it at today's elite level. It's a pretty talented ecosystem between 135 and 147.
That's what my brain says, Ben, too. My boxing brain says they both turn pro, and Haney's been on a steady incline.
Yeah.
Steady, gradual growth, better and better every fight, learning more. It's a different sport for him. He's crossed over well. He's maintained a level, and he's slightly gone better and better and better. Garcia has remained an unknown. He showed some signs of brilliance in minutes, and then some
vulnerability.
terrible signs of amateur. And but so I think everything common sense wise is Haney, but then there is some signs of brilliance with Garcia, and power and speed, and I have a feeling if they get into these exchanges, we will, because I think it's that personal. I think that Haney will, and he's a young red, hot-blooded man. If they get into a fight, I think Haney will have a bit of a fight. He'll try and stick to the boxing, but there'll be times when he'll dig in and fight. And I think at them times, he could come unstuck. If Garcia takes the center of the ring and stays there, he has the height, he has the reach, he has the speed, and he makes Haney. Everyone thinks. A lot of people think that Garcia's going to make this like a crazy fight. If Garcia makes Haney come to him, otherwise there's no fight. Haney's going to have this. Haney wants to be able to outbox Garcia, but if Garcia doesn't try and get into a boxing match with him, stands in the center of the ring, says let's have a fight, and every time Haney tries to engage with the jab, Garcia explodes on him. It could be very interesting,
Yeah. For sure. Well,
I think it's a tactical fight, Ben. Whoever's got the game plan, because they both know each other.
I think I think that Haney's going to box the same way he always does, actually, and be very disciplined. I think some fighters, however much trash and smack gets talked in the build-up, they still box. So certainly Floyd Mayweather was one example I know that they still box completely emotion-free and very safety first. And I think that's the way Haney is going to approach it, like he always does. If Garcia hits him and lands a shot, it could be interesting because I think Linares landed a shot that looked like Haney buckled his knees, if memory serves, a couple of years ago.
I've seen him
And
hurt a couple of times. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Exactly. So that is what you've been banking on. One thing I will say, Gary, is that I do think it's good value. Certainly, that for 5-1, 5-1 on Sky Bet. That I don't know what the other odds makers have made of it. They're usually pretty much of a muchness, pretty streamlined. But I've got the Sky Bet app on my phone, so that's what I always look at when I look at prices. And you get 5-1 if you fancy Garcia.
Just on the outright win.
Absolutely, which is pretty good value, huh?
Yeah, I would put a bet on that one. The thing is with Garcia, like we know what we're going to get with Haney. We know, like you say.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Haney when he gets into the Super League, like with the Tank and with the Ennis and with these guys. They know exactly what they're going to get with Haney, and they will work out how to beat him. Garcia is not so predictable, and that unpredictability makes him dangerous. And I think that Haney is 1% short of the super class. And
I agree with you on that too. I don't think he
and
like
I think that 1% where he's not 100% got the plan or got the ability to do what's necessary. Like Floyd in his prime would have just done a number on Garcia. Haney's not quite that level. So when you're not quite that level, I think it leaves a little gap for something that can spoil the apple cart. And that's what I'm going to go with.
Well, you've been quite successful with these kind of picks. You did it with Fundora, huh?
What's the score now?
I'd have to let me have a look. I will have a look for a minute. I'll tell you. I know that I'm way behind, but which just goes to show you that it's crazy. Let me see. The scoreboard is so you've out of the 17 picks you've made since you joined this show, Gary. You are 13-4, 13 correct predictions and 4 incorrect predictions. Silk is 11-5, so there's a little bit of a gap there, and there's a bigger gap with me. I mean, see, I'm no worse than Silk in a way. I've got 11 right, just like he has, but I happen to have 9 wrong. Been a bit unlucky with some. I mean, we had the cut with what was his name, Tim Zhu. There was the robbery with Michaela Mayer and Natasha Jonas, but I'm not complaining. I'm here. I'm just glad to be here. But so that's 13-4. You.
So you might catch up one tomorrow.
We might do, but you know what? The way your luck is, I would not bank on it. I'm actually more concerned that you're making the pick you are than anything else because you've been, like I say, you've lucked out a few times by sort of going loose and with your instincts like that. But
I don't think they're that loose. I think they're pretty educated. I even give you Parker against Zen, and Jilly Zen. I thought it was pretty. He would do exactly what he did. I did the Parker versus Wilder, which everyone said you're mental, but I thought it was quite not an outsider. I thought it was fundamental, and a couple of them. I think that, and with Garcia, I really, I understand everyone's thoughts, but what people are not looking closely at is the speed and the power of this kid. He's a little bit unorthodox. He's extremely powerful. He's extremely quick. He's he has a certain amount of IQ. When he fought Tank, even though, like you say, it was maybe the road was always going to end up where it was going to end up, but it was very competitive for a bit. There's not many.
I don't think it was. You see, it wasn't a beatdown, but I think Tank was in the driving seat and was the boss of that fight. I think he was doing the smart things. I don't think Garcia knew how to fight him. Whereas he knew exactly how to fight Ryan.
Well, I thought it was interesting until the end, and so he certainly wasn't out of his league. So it showed that he could hang for a bit with Tank, and most people, Tank could just destroy if he was levels below, but he wasn't levels
Well,
below.
he goes a distance of guys like Isaac Cruz too. Tank don't
Yeah.
destroy everybody. But
No, but I mean, he's got a pretty good IQ, Tank, and I think he wasn't super comfortable with Garcia for some of the fight. There was moments; they both had moments. So it surely could hang in that level. So if you can even hang in, even if he fell short, I think he's a bit better than I think Garcia is better than we think he is. I think his big issue is in his brain, and will his mind and will his dedication matches his ability. And it to my opinion, so far, his dedication and his has not matched his ability. And so, can he get it right for one fight? Is this fight so important to him that
well, so
he does
far
every
we've seen.
fight? Well, everyone talks about these posts and these silly TikTok, whatever. It takes 10 seconds, and everyone thinks he's not training. It's 10 seconds. He could be in between rounds.
He's not training. All I know is he's not made the weight by 3.2 pounds. All right, we've already discussed the idea that may be completely deliberate, but he hasn't done it, which means he can't win the title anyway. Which I'm still a bit old fashioned. I think if you sign up for a championship fight at light welterweight, you should make light welterweight. And we've seen the fact that he's behaving in a way that doesn't speak of emotional stability. Or entirely being the full shilling. So he definitely does not seem in touch with reality.
What I think is interesting, Ben, is had he not made the weight and looked a little bit, but he's looked ripped at this weight. So he's probably boiled down to, this weight. So how big is he? He certainly looked big and strong and in great shape. And his skin, everything about him looks like he's really in good shape. So he could have put on some real strength, power, and said, "Fuck it, I'm not going to lose this with killing myself at the weight. I'm going to stay." And he just wants to get this guy done. And if that's his option, and if he's trained right and his head's right, he seems a little bit too up for it for me. At the press conferences, he's punching his own hands. He's at the weigh and he's dancing around like as if he's in the corner. He's like save it for tomorrow. Hello, Smart Surf. So yeah, we'll see. Is he 100% on fire for this, or is he out of his mind? I don't know.
Well,
I'm betting on the wild horse, Ben.
I'm 70% confident he's going to get beat, but we shall see. In other news, I went to the press conference on Monday. The Better Bivol and the 5 versus 5 press conference. Wish you were there, Gary. Really, because I know we went to the what did we go to together? We went to Fury. Did we go to Fury?
We went to Joshua
Ngannou. We went to Joshua Ngannou together, didn't we?
So, and I'll be back in London soon, Ben. I'm going to Cannes Film Festival, so I'm going to spend a week in London. So we'll do another.
Yes, because I remember thinking it's a shame Gary's not here because I think you would have loved it. It was so theatrical. No doubt you've seen bits on YouTube and all the rest of it, but it was so theatrical and kind of. But they're selling a great card. They've got that 5 versus 5 is 5 50-50 type fights. Both teams absolutely hell bent on winning, but they had masks on. They were like all of
reveal the middleweight, reveal the heavyweight.
Yeah, Matchroom's team were all wearing clubs or spades, and Warren's lot all had diamonds or hearts masks, and even though most of the media had already leaked who they were going to be, and there were no real surprises, it was still really cool. And did you see that Guy Ritchie kind of spoof with Frank and Eddie at the table playing poker? Did you see it?
No.
I've got to send it to you after this. It was just really creative, and I must admit, I suppose some of the diehards might not like it, and some people might even expect a person like me not to like it. But I thought it was brilliant, And
this is the Sheikh in Saudi, right?
Yeah, I mean,
he's doing these like teasers, like teasers for movies now, isn't he? He sets them up in costumes and everything.
He's done some of that, yeah, but I don't know how much of a driving force he was behind the kind of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels kind of pastiche that they did. But it was kind of I think it's fun as long as we're getting these kind of fights that are underwritten by this oil money, so that the risk has been removed from either of the promoters. Then I think it's fair enough. I think it is an exciting time in boxing. I don't know how robust it is or how long it'll last, but it was. It was cool anyway, like I say. I don't think and it's very much this generation. It's something we haven't seen before. It's not imitating anything from the past. So it's not all doom and gloom from me. I enjoyed that press conference, and no doubt it's going to be a good show. Also, the invitation to apply for accreditation for Fury Usyk dropped today, so I've put that in. So hopefully, I mean, I would hope. Don't know if it can happen, but maybe the three of us can get out there as well. It's only a month away.
Yeah, I know I'm on for that. We've all discussed, but
Yeah.
I think Fury's looking great. Little bits of sin in the gym. He's looking super lean.
Yeah, he is looking good, and I still think Fury's going to win. You and me agree on that one.
Yeah.
The Silk is very much not with us on that, and it.
I hope he
I
doesn't
just-
overtrain, you know.
I think he overestimates Usyk a little bit and underestimates Fury. I think it's that simple for me.
Yeah, I hope Fury doesn't get too lean. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd like him. He looks like he's very light very early. You know what I mean? But we'll see. Maybe he can. My one concern is, but he's not. I don't think he can. Well, I don't know. I've got a funny feeling. Like I hope he doesn't. It's like, you know, when you change things and you get in super, you do things different. You become all of a sudden he's lean and shredded. Sometimes it's not the same. I just thought the great Fury at his best, with a bit of a belly maybe, but I just hope he doesn't change too much and it affects him. You know.
His dad had those issues, didn't he, when he fought Otto Wallin, and he was blaming Ben Davison and the training team around him at the time, and he was saying he was too light and he'd lost too much weight and all the rest of it. Whereas
Dad's there this time, right? So we could probably
Yes.
keep an eye on him, I guess. Yeah.
the old man is part of the camp this time, which is obviously something he always wanted to be. I'd just like to clear this up. I really do not want to create a discussion just because I'm about to highlight this comment. I'm just being polite, but I'm just going to kill it straight away. I've got to tell you, Michael Bates, I've got no interest in the Tyson thing at all. It's not a fight; it's an exhibition, and it's literally not on my radar. No interest. Don't think anything about it. End of.
Michael, I do. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to. It is a fight. There's no headgear. It's
No, it's not a pro fight. It's not a registered pro fight.
It's a fight. Let me tell you something. The fighters will take it, whether it's an exhibition or a fight, the same intensity. They're going to fight. So whether it's on a record, whether it's not on a record, the fight's going to be a fight. So no one's doing
moving swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on. Tyson is going to end this YouTube thing, and hopefully he doesn't need a lawyer for manslaughter.
I would hope that the renaissance that we're seeing in terms of the kind of fairy tale type bills that we're seeing that are being put together now, and we're seeing Frank and Eddie work together, with and embrace the whole thing, and they're both really getting into it and really enjoying it, and the rivalry.
It's all bullshit. You know what it is, Ben? They're getting big money from over there. They are.
Yeah. So I would hope that
they don't care about the fighters. They're both getting. If you look at this, you can imagine the conversation: Queensberry versus Matchroom. Look, Sheikh, we're going to lose all our best prospects in one night. One of us. Or both of us will lose half of our best prospects. So what's that going to be worth to us? We would never put these guys together. But you want it, we'll do it. But you got to look at they're getting so much money, the promoters, beside the fighters. Trust me, they wouldn't be putting.
But listen,
they would not be making them matches otherwise.
Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. But
they're going to lose prospects.
But you say lose prospects. What you're saying, you're buying into this notion that a loss means you're finished, which I'd have thought.
No, but they're going to lose marquee and notches. They don't need to. They're taking like the worst possible fights. But of course, the fighters are getting paid. That's fantastic, and the fighters, that's all they care about, which is right. But the promoters who have a bigger head on the shoulders, looking at long term, and let's get a few more fights out of them before we get them beat. They'd get a few. They got certain value, marquee value. They can put these fighters and they can top shows and make a few. So but it's worth the while because all the little shows they're going to do and make a few bucks and end up with one big fight. The Sheikh's giving them the money to match all of that and more. So they're throwing in the fighters with anyone that the Sheikh wants them to, which for me is a little bit. Yeah, it shows they don't care about the fighters really. They care about the paydays. They care about getting a lot of money. But if you were guided in careers, you wouldn't be. There's a couple of the fights prospects fighting really good guys, and they're certainly taking risks. And they'll say the defense or the fighters want it and it's good money, but they would never take it unless they were getting well paid for this. So, they keep talking like we're giving what the public want. No, they're getting paid up the ass to put these fighters, throw them into the lion's den and hope that they come through, and then they really benefit. But if they don't, then they do get a dent in their careers. They do go down the scale a little bit, these guys, and a lot of them should take chances they shouldn't really take. But they're getting paid.
Should we break that down? Should we break that down for the card? Because anything they've made so far, they were all world-class guys who should be fighting anybody, really. So let's talk about the prospects. That's because this is the first interview that's happened. So first of all, the biggest fight on the card in this team matchup is Wilder versus Zhang. They're old, aren't they? They're both, so they should be fighting. Agreed. So you've got any problem with that one? That's the first bout. All right. So Hamza Shiraz versus Austin Ammo Williams. What's the problem there? I think that's a perfect fight for Shiraz. And the other guy. It's a perfect fight for both of them. I don't think either one of them is I don't think it's unfair to either one of them, do you?
No. Is it what's on the line?
Well, he is the European. No, he's the Commonwealth middleweight champion, Shiraz, I believe. So
Right.
it's a world ranking type thing. That's on the line. It's
Right,
not.
So normally, both these guys you would guide into a world title. So they're going to fight for nothing, no belts, and one of them will take a big dent in his career. So,
but will he though?
Well, they can guide. They're both good enough, or seemingly prospect enough, to be guided to get a world title fight, which is the real big objective. So it may be a little early, but if they're getting well paid, it's an evenly matched.
But why shouldn't world-class fighters fight each other on the way to a world title fight?
No, because they should. They should, but it's a business, isn't it, Ben?
Well, it is, but it always was. But they didn't used to do it like this.
Yeah,
and thank God we're going back. We're swinging back a little bit finally.
Fine, but that's not Warren and Hearn doing that. That's the shame.
I'm not saying it is. I know exactly what is happening. Okay, so let's look at another one then. So there's two fights on the bill. Nick Ball versus Raymond Ford. Perfect. Newly crowned world champion of Raymond Ford against Nick Ball, who was unlucky last time out. You don't have an issue with that one, do you?
No.
Okay, there's three. What else have we got? We've got Willie Hutchinson versus Craig Richards. Can't see anything wrong with that.
What's on the line?
Listen, I don't think anything's on the line, and I think we're too obsessed with belts these days. We are far too obsessed with belts.
We're not, Ben, because let's be honest. Every young fighter wants to be guided to becoming a champion. It's not when the money.
But they're all champions today. They're all champions.
Yeah, but when the money's been and gone, you take risks. When there's some, forget the money. These guys would not be fighting for nothing otherwise.
I think this is what's wrong and diseased about thinking.
Well, we understand that
when people think there's titles involved.
Ben, I understand.
The white collar thing's the same. I'm not fighting unless I'm fighting for a belt. What the fuck?
I understand, but if I was guiding my son or your son or someone I loved, I would guide him, keep him. I would guide him to when I'm going to finally take a chance. There's got to be the belt on the line. If I can avoid that until then, I would, and that's just good management.
Well,
not to say that
they obviously don't want one, does
they're not great fights, Ben. But in the interest of the fighter and his legacy, and when he looks back in 50 years, he could have been a world champion, or he couldn't, and he spent the money. Had he been guided? Because no one remembers how you got there. They just remember, did you win it or did you not? There's so many great fighters, Ben, who's not won world titles, who should have. And it was just simply bad management.
Well, you say they should have. I disagree. They should have. What you're saying is,
Harold Bomber Graham should have.
But he got 3 shots and lost them all.
Half the time he was 10 years too late.
Well, not the McCallum fight, and not. Julian Jackson came a little bit later.
We were late, Ben.
Charles Brewer was a little bit later, but listen, I see it the other way. I think someone like Tony Simpson and Colin Jones, they were really good fighters, but they weren't quite elite in their era because it was a more honest ecosystem then. So they didn't quite make it. Whereas obviously they would have done today. They'd have been massively decorated today. Simpson and Kayla fighting today, that would have been a world title like Terry Flanagan and Derry Matthews or something. But I dislike the way. To me, that I'm a guest at what
I understand. All I'm saying is, forget your opinion or mine. All I'm saying is I'm not having a pop at the fights. They're good fights. They're well matched. I'm having a pop at the intentions of the promoters who are putting aside the objective simply for money. Because I don't think any promoter would put up tough fights, amazing 50-50 fights for nothing.
Oh, by the way, one more fight. Hrgovic and Dubois. That makes total sense as well, right? And please don't ask me what's on the line.
No,
I'll tell you if you want to know.
That's a good fight. Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So when you see, this is my thing, Gary. It's all very well having a narrative, right? And it's all very well saying, well, but I always like to say, let's actually open it up and put it under the microscope. So
two of the fights. Let me give you my flip side to your point of view. Two of the fights are not for belts, which would not happen normally. So I'm correcting that. The others,
which ones? Which ones?
The two we talked about, we've known the European champion and the other guy,
Hamza Shiraz and Austin Williams. Yeah. Craig Richards and Willie Hutchinson.
Well, them two for me are too early, are not necessary for nothing on the line other than money, because both could be guided into world titles and then have more lucrative careers with more prestige.
What are you actually saying as well? I bet what you're saying is they could both be guided to separate world titles without even fighting each other.
And then imagine, and the end of careers with nothing, or they both could say, we went to a hell of a career and I won a world title, because it matters at the end. But let's forget that. In regard to the other fights, they've put Zhang in with Wilder because they don't give a fuck about either one of them, because they've both been done. So it doesn't matter. And Dubois, they're throwing him in because they're really saying, sink or swim, Daniel. This is it. You've had your chances. You keep fucking them up. This is your last chance. We're going to throw you in with whoever, and if you come out of it, it is what it is. And they probably all think Hrgovic's going to beat him, but there's no really caretaking to get Daniel to, when he got beat with Usyk, I think he should have took a step back, had a couple of fights, got into a certain.
Well, he beat Miller, right? He beat Baby Miller since then.
Yeah, and maybe one other fight. Well, I think he's going to fight a guy, and probably when he gets beat, he'll never, ever fight for another world title. Whereas he could have been guided into another shot at some point somehow. Maybe. But doesn't. I just think you're correct, Ben. They're all decent fights. But my thing is the objective of the promoters is not fully in the interest of the fighter for the long-term career goals. They put them into fights with no belts that they can lose. And normally, most of the time at this stage of these careers, let's say there wasn't all these super, there's a lot of surplus heavyweights around right now because they've all been beat by one of the others. There's a lot of guys who have not 100% records. So, but when you've got these young prospects or guys coming up who are borderline on a world title fight, if there was no money involved, they would never take these fights. They would wait to get a title fight for these guys. They've worked.
Well, I think Dubois might take the fight regardless because it's a final eliminator.
Dubois would take it.
Always had those
because he got beat, and he also he's got to get his stock up, and this launches him back again. So this is a good fight for Dubois. I'm not against it. I just think my argument is the feeling of the show is for their benefit more than the fighters' benefit. For me, as promoters,
listen. Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't.
In an ideal world, a couple of the fights wouldn't take place unless there were belts on the line. But at the end of the day,
I hate this belts on the line logic. I can't tell you how passionately I hate it. When you just said there, fights that they could lose, fights for no belts that they could lose. I think bingo. That's what I want to see. That is my box in heaven.
No, I understand
no belts that either fighter could fights for no belts that either fighter could lose. Fantastic.
No, great. No, that's great for boxing. It's not good for the business. And if I was managing, I would be careful with my fighter to try and get the best out of his career. So that's all I'm saying.
But ultimately, it's about making money in it because fighters.
At the end of the day, you're correct. If they're getting big money, you can't eat your belts.
What else do you want?
You need to make a living, so it's fine. It's fine. But I laugh at this. Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, now they're getting along so well. Well, they're just both getting paid up the ass by by the other
Of
man.
course, of course.
And that's why they're biting the bullet and doing whatever they, and they'll end up partners, the two of them, with the other guy, making billions of dollars and take over boxing, completely dominate the sport. That's what then you watch in the near future. It'd be Warren and Frank together with the Sheikh, and they'll take over the whole game. And that's
Well,
that's the super objective. I believe.
wonder how much of a threat it is to the American power brokers, you know, and
Big
the Las
time.
Vegas.
You know what they're going to do? You know what they're going to do, Ben? They're going to create a belt, and the belt will be the belt in boxing, because they'll say, the Sheikh will say, this is the only belt where we don't give a fuck about any.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. And that will then supersede WBC.
Thank you.
They
Turkey
will,
for president, global.
they may end up, Ben, listen how this just hear me, my madness. They may end up creating a belt with the right PR that everyone thinks the rest is irrelevant, and putting all the other authorities out of business.
Wouldn't
And
that
they
be
all want that
fantastic?
one belt. That's what, and
Yeah.
there'll be one belt, one world champion, which is what you love, right?
Yes, yes.
That's what's going to happen. No 5 belts. They'll create one belt with the credibility. We put guys together. They've got the track record now. They're doing it every day, more and more and more. They'll create a belt. This is the real belt. And then the public will go with them, and that'll be the only belt that they care about. And then the other bodies will be in serious trouble.
Although Mauricio Sulaiman was at the press conference on Monday, and so maybe they'll even throw their weight behind the WBC. Maybe they'll pick one of the existing organisations to strengthen at the expense of the others. You know, but that could happen, I guess, because Mauricio seemed like he was pretty tight with the whole process. You know, and then because Roberto Duran was there too.
Yeah,
he turned up, and they've
he
created
was
a
sick,
special.
wasn't he?
He was until quite recently. Yeah, he was. So it was good to see him there, looking good. But yeah, they created an undisputed belt for the Fury Usyk winner. Duran was the one who walked on stage with it.
And that's going to be the belt they all start fighting for.
Yeah. Well, like I say, same thing. So this guy, Jab Grab is saying same thing Dana White is doing with the BMF title. There needs to be one belt per division, and fuck the other belts. Yeah, so
that's true. The only problem is, well, it's not a problem, but if you've got 10 contenders, it takes forever to get a fight. You know, if the champion takes 2 fights.
Well, it used to, although they used to, the thing is, Gary, in that other era when that was the case, they fought more regularly because the money wasn't as big. So they might have. Not only would they have a bunch of defenses in a year if they kept winning, they would have a bunch of non-title fights as well. You know what I mean? So Sugar Robinson could fight 14 times in a year when he was world champion, whereas Canelo Alvarez is only going to fight twice a year. If you're lucky.
Yeah, so that's the only thing. It'll hold up a lot of things. But
yeah,
I've always been uncomfortable with 5 world champions. You know.
I don't even accept the fact that we've got 5. I say we've got 4. That's how I can't go with the other lot. I know what you're saying, but I don't think we have 5. I think we have a big 4.
WBC, WBA.
I know what you're going to say. I know who they all are. Trust me, I've been living with them for fucking decades.
Who are your belts?
You're going to say the big 4 plus the IBO. That's what you're going to say.
I'm not a fan of WBO. I still don't take the WBO.
They're more credible than the IBO, but the thing is, the WBO. What I would say,
my mate created that.
Yeah. What's his name? Paco Varoso.
He was involved in the early days. I think they got him out, but he was
what's his name?
And he was involved with John Robinson from the British.
Yeah, for the WBU.
For the WBU.
John Tiny Robinson.
Yeah. Anyway, he was American, but real slick motherfucker.
Stan Hoffman.
Can't remember his name. I met him a million times. He's a very good friend.
Was it a bearded fella?
Danny something.
Yeah.
Silver hair, tanned up. He looked a bit like the Michael Buffer type, but anyway, he was involved in the early stages because he showed me that they were designing the belt in the office with me. They were showing me, look, what do you think of this belt? And I was like, yeah. But he said, this is going to be the belt. Anyway, I laughed, but he ended up, it grew and grew and grew. But anyway, so for me, it was because it was a friend, I thought, and he just came up with this thing with maybe the other people you mentioned, but I thought that's crazy. And now it's a world title. It's like we could all do it. It's. I remember
It's
the
the
early
only,
stages of it, and
yeah.
trying to get people to fight for it, and we'll offer you a world title fight, and try and
Well,
get a.
Nigel Benn was the first one I remember, British fighter winning with a WBO belt, against Doug DeWitt in 1990.
And
And I
Eubanks,
didn't think,
right?
huh?
Eubanks, that was his belt, wasn't it?
Well, he beat Nigel Benn, didn't he, for it?
Yeah, and
After
then
Nigel
that's
Benn beat
how
Doug
he
DeWitt.
kept forever, didn't he? Really,
He
16
kept
defense.
what? No, but at super middleweight, wasn't it? It wasn't at middleweight, was it? I believe he had a few defenses at middleweight. Then he won the. I think he made most of the defenses at super middleweight, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
but it was
believe.
all the same. That belt, right? That was his belt.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you really want to get technical, I don't think Eubank was ever the number one in the world, and he wouldn't have been a world champion in another era. I doubt either. But hey, that's the big argument for all the belts, because look at what a career he had and what a big attraction he was. And obviously, you figured in there. I would have said it earned you a few quid. Only that wasn't quite the case, was it? But
No. But
but
no, I
But I
think
have to give the WBO the same props as the other ones today. The only reason being is because if you look at some of their champions over the last several years, they've been as credible as anybody else's. Guys like
that's
Nassim
what they were.
Hamed.
That's what they were saying when they set the belt up. They said all we need. They kept saying all we need is one credible fighter to win it, and then the belt becomes, verified. And so,
And I think Nassim Hamed and Marco Antonio Barrera and people like that, they're
and
all.
Eubanks was early in that time when he was one of the first to win that from Ben, I guess, or whoever. That was Eubanks was very fundamental in that journey. I remember him saying Eubanks is going to take this, that was his belt. And but yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, but it will be interesting to see where that goes, with particularly with respect to the Saudi involvement in Turkey Al Sheikh, and the idea that, because Bob Arum said, he said one day they'll destroy themselves. He said, I hope it gets to the point where there's about 10 or 12 belts. He said, because, or organisations, sanctioning bodies, because he said they will destroy themselves. They will destroy their own credibility. So Arum wanted to see them fall, and he wanted to see one, because just in closing, I understand that it's great for fighters to be able to make money and to secure their futures, which so few fighters actually do. But my big problem is this obsession with the notion of elitism, which is not really the elite, and that's the only thing that makes it commercial. If we had a more educated fan base, there's no reason why fighters can't make money. If they're good fighters and they've got good personalities and they're marketable guys inside the ring and outside the ring, there's no reason why they couldn't make big bucks. It's this obsession with what is supposed to be a world title, when we all know really sensibly that they can't all be world champions. Same way they can't all be best kebab on the high street, Gary. There's some of them are going to be good and some are going to be not so good, right? So I don't want fighters not to make money, and I don't want their teams not to make money if everybody's working hard and they deserve it. I just don't like this obsession with the bogus sense of top quality when we know it isn't really,
What bothers me, Ben, is this, I mean, you said it, but I don't think you believe it. You said, good fighters, good personalities. I'm not of that. I feel sad for, there's some amazing fighters, the quiet family men. They don't put the social media, they in the, and they're not in the all this, and they'll never get the benefits because they don't do all this bullshit. But they're real pure fighters. It's like now it's how many followers you have, whether you're a title fight. It's a joke. And like,
well, talk about Ryan. Like Jim Lampy said, if Ryan Garcia wasn't the powerhouse he is on social media, would he fight be happening?
There you go. And it's like, and not only the situation he's in, but the money he's earning. It's the money too. It's not okay. He's got all this.
He doesn't even care about giving away 1.5 million in a forfeit. He doesn't care.
That's more than 99% of all the world champions of old made in their careers.
Yeah, exactly that. He's given away more than most fighters have ever earned
in the whole career,
with a shrug and a defiant tweet on. See, the thing is, when some people say you have to trash talk. Like a guy like O'Hara Davies, when he's first coming up, said he trash talked because it was a way of making himself, getting his name out there, and a way of making more money, and a way of commercializing things. But you look at some of the most popular fighters of recent years. Let's say from the UK, for instance. Ricky Hatton was just a popular guy, right? He was just an everyman who people liked and were attracted to because he seemed genuine and he'd had a pint with half of his fans. Yeah, so there's an example where you don't necessarily need to talk trash, or you don't need to. Eubank certainly was a talker, and he was different, right? He was a flake and a standout. So that's why he was the way he was. Nigel Benn, just an exciting fighter, right? Bit of kind of swagger, bit of black British swagger, which probably helped some of his marketing. But I'm just trying to establish whether someone like Mickey Ward ended up making money, right, just from being a good fighter. With Gatti,
Yeah, well,
three
Gatti
fights,
made his career,
three
didn't
times. Yeah.
he? Yeah, that made his legacy, Gatti.
And they got paid in the end because they didn't trash talk each other, they didn't badmouth each other. It
They
wasn't for
loved
some
each other.
bogus belt.
They
Huh?
loved each other in the end, you know.
Yeah, I think they really liked each other
Oh,
before they threw a punch.
I saw a thing on TV when Mickey Ward did a whole campaign about Gatti getting murdered, and
Yeah.
we got to do something. I love this man, and he talked so highly of him. He was at the funeral. He was. They were fond of each other after. I mean, you share that kind of memories. You got to respect each other, and I think they had a real friendship after, as so many do when they get into these classic fights. But yeah,
but they liked each other before the fights, I think, Gary, because you see
I'm
certainly
sure,
before the
because
trilogy
they're both similar type people, working class.
Yeah. So my point about those fights, they were pretty lucrative. There was no title on the line, there was no bogus world title on the line or anything like that. It was just because of fan, and they fought 3 times back to back because the marketing was just it was going to be a great fight every time, and it was, So
Yeah, because the thing is, I'm talking about these two fights on the Series 5 fight with Warren.
yeah,
These guys who are taking the risk, right? My issue is they're nobodies in the public. No one knows them. Very few boxing guys. I barely know either one of it, 4 of them.
Who are we talking about? What the 5 versus 5?
Yes, the 2 fights I was talking about. I don't know these guys at all
Because they're not on a mainstream audience anymore, Gary.
Right, so their careers can get damaged before you even know them. This is and they deserve, with the records they have, to get a little bit of help, to get a little bit of game, so they can earn outside the ring for sponsorship. Right now they're going to take a serious loss. They'll get paid well, yeah, but
but listen, hang on a second. Nick Ball's just lost a fight. You watched it. We did a watch along. Nick Ball has already lost a fight, right? All right. So there was a title on the line. It was a world title bid.
But it's not about that.
And he's right back in there. So what's the problem?
Because he's already there.
Yeah, but no one hardly knows him, do they? I bet you. I could walk down.
I think the last fight
with him.
got him a lot more people, but
I bet you, if me, you, and him walk down Oxford Street, more people would stop you than him.
I don't know, but you know what it is. Yeah, ask me for a few quid. You know what it is, Ben. I just think that everything you say is correct, and everything you say is correct in regard with the good fights. But my thing is more so I'm attacking the promotional thing on the fact that they keep selling what the public want. No, they're selling the fighters, taking risks because they're getting well paid.
They're rolling the dice now. They said none of it matters. We're not protecting you at all costs because things have changed now. The bottom line.
Now we're all getting paid. The difference is between them getting paid and the fighters getting paid. The fighters can get fucking hurt, and they don't. So it's a different game. That's my only thing. It turns me off of it. But
I've got to read.
It's good for boxing.
I've got to read Adrian Knott's comment here. I could not agree with it more wholeheartedly. He says multiple belts have damaged boxing. So many great fights not made over the years. The number of world titles has also devalued British and European titles. That is absolutely true. Back in the day, there was a picture of the 7 British European champions at the same time in the 70s, and it was all like Bugner, Stracy, Rudkin. There was a whole bunch of them.
Why do we have these great? Why do we have these great classic British fights? They're the best fights ever, right? These British title fights. You know why? Because there's one belt, and how hard it is to get there, and you finally get there, and they have these incredible even 50-50 fights and there's one belt on the line. That's why they're classics, and the classics have been lost in world title fights. It's just one of many of And you don't enjoy it to the fact that you say, well, he beat such a buddy, but he wouldn't beat that one, and he won't beat this. And there's so many champions. This is why
I bet if I asked you who did Marvin Hagler beat to become world middleweight champion, you'd tell me in a heartbeat. And everybody else would tell me in a heartbeat. If I asked you who did Gennady Golovkin beat to become world middleweight champion, I bet no one could even tell me.
I don't know.
No, and you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know because it was a fight that he ended up. It was initially for a certain status, then he got upgraded. There was no defining moment at all in Golovkin's career like that because that's not how we do it now. It's like that. What's his name? Jamal Charlo is champion.
Well, it's his interim shit as well. Now you're interim champion.
Exactly. You know,
that doesn't make sense, does it? It's crazy. You're not the champion, but you're the interim champion. What's that?
And they have interim champions when there's nothing wrong with the actual champion himself. You know, like I say, Jamal Charlo right now is champion in recess, the WBA light middleweight, I believe. So he's asked, can he fight that Israel Madrimov? Because he wants to use his status as champion in recess to force a fight with him. And Terence Crawford wants to fight this Madrimov instead. But like I say, everybody's got some kind of belt. And even talk about Dubois, he was WBA regular heavyweight champion, don't forget. He beat that guy, what was his name? Trevor Bryan, who'd held that kind of nothing title for ages. I would never be down with it. I know people have got to need to eat and live and make money, and I realise it's all about risk reward, but we've got to be able to do something better. And I think we are heading towards something that looks a little more promising, regardless of where it ends up and regardless of what the motivation is. And let's just see, you know, I'm trying to take an opportunity to be more positive than I usually am. And actually, you played the caveat on that. So let's see where we end up with it.
Good, Ben. And on that note.
Indeed. Okay. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We had the brief cameo from Michael Large today, which I hope you enjoyed. We'll all be back Sunday to see if Gary's only gone and done it again and got it right, picking the underdog. I wouldn't put it past him, would you? Be lucky, keep punching.
Cheers, guys.